afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to the internet's most sophisticated wrestling podcast, discussing the weekly aspects of it all, right here on
The Bald Monkey Wrestling Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast. If you're an avid listener to us, you know that we skipped a week. I was on vacation. I'll take the blame for that. But that being said, few things to catch up on. Few things. Three things I think in particular that are worth talking about. Luckily, while I was gone and into this week, Raw and SmackDown were pretty much garbage, so I don't even know that they're worth talking about that much. But there was a few things that happened in the course of the last time we recorded. One of them is Double or Nothing, which, excellent. The other one, NXT Takeover, again,
Better.
Even better, yeah. And then today, just today, fresh off the presses, we had the Super Showdown, which not so much a pay-per-view as much as it is like a highly televised house show with pyro.
You mean the show that's supposed to be bigger or equivalent to WrestleMania?
Yeah. You know what? The thing is, though, WrestleMania wasn't that great, so was it equivalent? Well, no, it wasn't, actually. It wasn't even that. But you know what? The thing about the Superstar Showdown that I have to always tell myself is, okay, it is a house show. Like I said, it's a house show. Don't think of it as a pay-per-view. Don't think of it as where story actually matters within the WWE universe. Think of it as they are going to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is paying them a lot of money to put on a really good house show. And since they're going to spend so much money doing this crazy house show anyway, why not record it? The pacing of the show, and you had told me, Steven, you didn't watch it today, right?
No, I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it was that, but I felt obligated to watch it to a certain degree, just to see a couple things in particular. Obviously, the main thing that they were pushing was that 50-man battle royal, and oh my God, was that ring crowded! It had every main roster person in it, really, and really not that many NXTers, like almost none, except for the eventual winner, who was in fact from Saudi Arabia. So that's actually the point where I was like, you know, you're being too tough on this, James. It's a house show. Because the winner's from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but that's that feel-good moment. Saudi Arabian people, like, okay, we have a chance here.
But you know what?
I get that.
It felt good. I will say that it was for what it was successful. That 50-man battle royal, it showed the crowd and everybody's really happy. There were even like a couple random people that were crying, which, well, you know, I guess that's their prerogative, but hey, I mean, if they're that into it, I mean, it felt good, you know? Other things that didn't feel so good, Undertaker Goldberg. This match, I don't know.
What a jackknife.
It was rough. It was really rough. It wasn't as much of a jackknife as much as a failed attempt at a jackknife that almost turned into an accident waiting to happen. And I'm not quite... I mean, both of those guys might be injured after that match. I think the finish was so rough that it almost looked like they were talking to each other on the ground, and Goldberg's like, I can't do anything else. Like, maybe he injured himself. And so it was this really weird chokes. It was like a choke slam 1, 2, 3, which isn't typical. You know, it's like you would have expected it to be one more tombstone. So it feels like they called an audible.
They probably did.
They teased that old like Brock Lesnar Goldberg match where he comes out of the gate and he hits him with 2 spears, and you're thinking, oh, this match again? But again, like house shows and stuff like that, they're some of the easiest pay-per-views. Well, again, house show, but I say pay-per-view because they push it out there to pick. Like we made picks for it earlier today, and I think it's really easy because it's just like this is obviously what's going to happen. If we all knew, oh, there's an NXTer from Saudi Arabia in the 50-man, I think we all would have picked him.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, but we don't have to talk too much about Super Showdown. At the end of the day, it was an okay house show with a couple really rough matches. I really don't think that Undertaker and Goldberg should be ever fighting again. Not just each other, just period.
No.
I mean, I'm telling you, like you need to go and watch that match, Steven. And Undertaker at the end of it, he just looks like his face. I'm just reading from his face, like, what the fuck? Like this is stupid. Why am I still doing this?
I know he got busted open and everything, but the whole billing it as the first time ever, this is a big monster match. Why? The Undertaker just looked, stuff I've seen, frustrated and just disappointed in the whole thing.
I don't know. You can play that game all day long, legend versus legend, oh, so-and-so never fought so-and-so all day long, but it doesn't make it good being the first time if you're bringing them in and having them fight like way, way, way past the peak of their careers.
Yeah.
Had it been
the peak of an understatement.
Yeah, had it been Goldberg Undertaker at the peak of their careers, that would have been a noteworthy match. I mean, to give old Nakamura some love, he hates Goldberg, and I don't think he's like off base for why he doesn't like him. He doesn't like him because he feels like he only has a couple moves, but Undertaker right now only has a couple moves. Really, Undertaker for a long time has only had a couple moves. And really, that's kind of wrestling nowadays, isn't it? The big guys, They've got a couple moves. I mean, another match from the Superstar Showdown, Triple H versus Randy Orton.
Not needed.
It was this slow-paced match that was very basic, and I'm getting annoyed at Michael Cole and Corey Graves, and they're basically like, oh yeah, no, they're keeping. He's Triple H. He's keeping it really basic because he knows if he leaves an inch for Randy Orton will take a mile and end up taking advantage. It's like, okay, I mean that's one way of spinning it.
Be an RKO out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, a good match coming out of nowhere would have been better. The other matches, Usos versus Revival, okay match. Rollins versus Corbin, it was a pretty average match, actually. Very average match.
And I expected more out of it.
Yeah.
I really did.
And then Brock comes down to do the cash-in, and Brock gets into the ring with a chair, and Paul Heyman starts to get into the ring with the briefcase and trips over the second rope and drops the briefcase in front of Brock. Brock looks down at it. While he does, Seth Rollins low blows him, and then Seth Rollins beats the crap out of Brock Lesnar, and that's how it ends. So no cash-in, even though he's like, oh, I said I'm going to cash in, and they can still say that. Well, he said he was going to cash in, and he was, but then everything went sideways.
Yeah, I think it's all going to be a ploy, and eventually he's just going to cash in on Kofi. And I hate to say that, but I think that's what's going to happen.
I think that would be fun. I think that's better storyline. Again.
And at this point, I agree.
I think the last time we recorded, we had Chuck on, and one of my big things, and I want to continue this, we can do this today, is, what's a bad storyline, and then how do you repair that storyline? Because Brock Lesnar isn't going away. He's here
not
for
at this
good.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take that and turn it into something good. So the cash in itself, I think you've hit it dead on, which is how do you salvage this cash in? What you do is you keep teasing that he's going to cash it in on Rollins, and then when you're not expecting it, you have him cash in on Kofi, and then oh my God.
But not just that. Just now that he's finally officially closed the book on UFC, he's showing up every stinking week. I've seen him more in the last month than I've seen him in the whole time he was Universal Champion.
That's good. The only thing I would wish more out of him is that he would fight a couple more matches. If he fights twice as many matches as he did last year, I won't hate him nearly as much. It was always
he has 6 matches this year.
Yeah, like that's yeah. Actually, I want more than that. I want like I want like a Brock match at almost every pay-per-view, and then a couple spread throughout just the normal show. I think that's not too much to ask.
Yeah, but I also agree with him making it a lengthy time with the briefcase. He's got to stop singling out just Seth. If he was attacking Seth and Kofi, I think it'd make more sense for him to drag it out.
Yeah.
Hey, let Bray stay away. The Firefly thing gets building, so when he finally hits the ring, it's going to be a massive ordeal.
I was happy
to see him randomly start attacking Kofi too.
Yeah. You bring up Bray. I was happy to see that Bray was not at this show. Good.
Yeah.
Good job, WWE. Hold on to it. It's working really well. It's literally what everybody buzzes about for every week, is like waiting for the Firefly Funhouse. And the stuff with the workout, this last one, when they do the throwback to Husky Harris. I say there was nothing worth talking about on Raw and SmackDown. That's the thing worth talking about.
That's true. I'll give you that.
The one gripe, actually, and I didn't realize this until I watched Super Showdown today, and they had the Lars versus the Lucha House Party.
Oh God, yeah.
And they showed that on Tuesday they let him talk. What? Why did they let him talk? Oh no!
It was horrible.
Lars Sullivan.
He sounded like he was trying to sell insurance or something.
Nothing like saying bodily fluids with a lisp. It was no good.
It's one of the great things about Kane. For years, Kane didn't say a word.
Give him a valet.
Say a word for the longest time.
Now the problem. Go ahead.
You don't need the big monster men to do that.
Yeah, and I think I think the problem with Lars Sullivan as a character is that the way that they've built him. How do you give him a valet at this point? I remember back, Chris was talking about, it seemed like they were teasing that, he was very intimidating to Carmella, but maybe Carmella would come to his side and maybe Carmella could be his valet, but obviously that never happened.
No.
Was that even a good idea? I don't know.
See, like if Brock was gone, like Brock did leave, you could have introduced Lars with Paul Heyman and never had Lars say a word. And it would have been gold.
Yeah. Another takeaway from that 50-man Battle Royal is just how many wrestlers WWE has and how ridiculous this wild card rule really is.
Did you watch any of the airplane title transition?
I did not know.
Oh, I think R-Truth is like a 7-time 24/7 champion at this point.
It's like it seems like they're keeping it on him because he keeps it entertaining, and that's is that the right move or is that the wrong move? I would say it's both. I don't know.
Crash Holly with the hardcore title.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if he can keep it interesting and they keep. I don't know. I mean, it seems like I keep seeing, like, and even when I was on vacation, I was seeing the text chats between everybody, and it seemed like you guys were being entertained by the 24/7 title and the Bray stuff. So both of those things were kind of working-ish.
Bray stuff is on top. The 24/7 stuff, where he randomly pops up, like when he was underneath the ring on the table, that was great. It was funny.
Yeah.
Spots for other people, and it helps get some attention on other people. I hate to say that Elias is a 2-time champion, but it's been the 24/7 title both times, and like some of these people who deserve at least like an IC or US title spot. I mean, it brings attention to them. It gives them gold. It gives them a little bit of credibility, maybe. But it's been entertaining.
Speaking of IC titles, Andrade faced the Demon at Super Showdown today. That match was not too bad. It could have been great, but it definitely, they were on a schedule, so it seemed like it was a little bit rushed. But man, Andrade is such a good wrestler. He really deserves the IC title more than Finn needs it. Because, well, really, the thing that I want them to do, and here we go. Here's something that benefits the Brock storyline and benefits Finn Balor. We're used to seeing the Demon at SummerSlam. We still have a little bit of time. To build that up. So why not have Brock at Stomping Ground cash in on Kofi Kingston and take the belt and then put him over there? He could still be on both shows, but keep him over there. And then do that rematch. Get that Seth Rollins versus the Demon rematch for SummerSlam.
Well, Finn's on SmackDown.
Oh, who cares? It's the wild card rule, man. Don't you know?
I honestly, to make it more of a big feat, I would like to see the Demon versus Brock and go to a no contest, which is crazy. But like Kofi going out to the ring for his match and Finn's leaving after his match and let Andrade beat Finn, and Finn's like limping up the ramp and Brock like shove him out of the way or something. And that entices the Demon to come out and attack Brock.
I mean, that would be a fun SummerSlam match.
Yeah, and after the match, Brock is celebrating after he cashed in with the belt. Then you start hearing the heartbeat, and the Demon attacks Brock.
Yeah. That could be good. That could definitely work. The problem is I think the setup for that almost has to be done at SummerSlam then. So the cash in on Kofi would have to be at SummerSlam, and then the Demon comes out at Summer. He doesn't even have a match, maybe. Or maybe he did as Balor earlier in the night, and then he comes out as the Demon later. Like you said, he loses to Andrade early in SummerSlam.
Mm.
And maybe instead of it being on a ramp thing. Yeah. No. Oh, and I think if they did it as Finn Balor and Andrade, so you know that Andrade can win, because Andrade's got the moves, man. He's really good. It's interesting we talk about those NXTers, like the ones that have come up and like should have come up and shouldn't have come up. Like Andrade, it took a while for people to get behind him, and he still doesn't have like the full force of people behind him, but the dude's legit.
Even back in NXT, he could go. And I said coming up, and they first threw him in that feud with AJ, he might not have been ready right away, but by now he should have had gold.
I concur with that. But yeah, again, the problem is the writing, and the state of WWE confuses me so much right now.
Mm-hmm.
Especially and we can pivot over to Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing was a pay-per-view that was, I'd say, okay to good all the way up until the last 3 matches of the night. And what was interesting is me and Chris were watching it, and we were watching that Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes match. And
it's a good match.
When I was watching it, I didn't think it was a good match, and then I kept thinking about it, and I'm like, no, it's a different style of match, right? It's totally different from the other two, which is, it's a good thing, right? Your Young Bucks versus Lucha Brothers was like your crazy high flyer match. Your Jericho versus Kenny Omega was kind of like your kind of grudge match. And then the Dustin Rhodes versus Cody Rhodes was just that pure emotional storytelling match. And
I was gonna say, it was such a good story. The whole match.
Oh my God. When he got busted open, oh my God. I've never seen somebody, I don't know if I've ever seen somebody bleed that much. The only person I can think of that bled that much was, it was an ECW fight. It was Beulah versus, I don't know, that lanky guy. And she busts him open, and he's like bleeding all over the place. Like it's the only wrestling match I can think of that I've seen where somebody bled that much.
He was on Dustin Rhodes, Goldust, whatever you want to call him. He was on Talk is Jericho this past week, and he talked about he bled expected to. They went deeper than they expected, and he said parts of the match he couldn't see there was so much blood. He said it took about 15 minutes before he was like, okay, I'm not seriously injured. I'm going to be okay. Like he was in the match worried something was wrong.
I was worried. people in the front row watching that match there were so many people that when you put that much blood in a match, it naturally divides some wrestling fans. But what I can appreciate about AEW is that they're willing to go there to a certain extent. It's like they don't have to do it in every match. There doesn't need to be blood in every match. But gosh, it was great. It was really, really, really good.
And then the moment where we were both wrong.
What? Hey. Oh, the Moxley thing? Yeah, God. Oh, Chris, some drinks for that. That's no good.
Which, on top of that, he's had a pretty good last, 10 days.
Yeah, he was in the, what was it, Junior Championships or whatever?
Yeah, and he won the NW or New Japan's U.S. title.
Yeah.
And I have to say, his new version of the Dirty Deeds, he calls it, or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Picture of the Dirty Deeds with Edge's Impaler, where it's like a lifting double arm DDT. I like it a lot more than just the regular double arm.
I used to hate the Dirty Deeds as a move in general.
I liked the original Dirty Deeds where he had them the opposite direction, and then they switched it to the double arm DDT. But his new version looks a lot better. It's more believable, I think.
It's funny, thinking of moves that have been changed and stuff like that. One of the big ones that people always bring up is the Walls of Jericho and how it eventually kind of turned into the Lion Tamer, and now the Walls of Jericho is just a Boston Crab or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Roderick Strong does the Lion Tamer. I love it. I love it when he does that. And he cranks it at such a weird angle too.
And that was the effect of it. That's why it was so effective, is because you have to get those weird angles, and then when you put the knee in the lower back and bend it in even more, like that was the effect of the Walls of Jericho. And
I mean, it just looks painful. I mean, the Boston Crab. Now, to be fair, the Boston Crab, that is a legitimate move. I've seen somebody do that in a UFC fight before, or it wasn't UFC, but it was it was just a mixed martial arts, not UFC, some other brand though.
Yeah, affiliation.
But it works. The guy tapped from it. So,
but he's bending your body like that and sitting on your lower back. It's gonna hurt like hell. But the way the walls worked, I bet it felt worse, but it looked like it felt worse. And that's part of the storytelling, is you need it to look bad, and it looked painful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's very, very effective when Roderick Strong has been doing it lately. And
I like him. I like him as a character adapting that move to his set list, because it's believable coming from somebody like him. He knows what he's doing in there.
You know what? I've enjoyed that heel turn so much, and that it was one of those like under the radar heel turns. Like when he went heel, I was like, well, I could see them turning on him, and I still could see them turning on Roderick Strong eventually, but I don't think that they should. I think he's really good. I think he's really good as a heel, sneaky good as a heel.
Say this, but I could see over the next couple takeovers, him getting the North American Championship and the rest of Undisputed Era getting the tag titles back, and them ruling the roost, per se, having every belt other than women in NXT.
I think that is a good way to do it always. When you have a stable, like, and your stable's popular, you need to do that at some point. That's something
that's the way they used to do it.
And quite honestly, you know what else they should do?
With DX being that way,
Yeah. You know what else they should do? They should recruit a woman to Undisputed Era and have her go after the Women's Championship.
And then that could set up for War Games being worth something.
Well, I mean,
Undisputed Era.
I'm gonna correct you for myself and say worth something more.
Yeah, I mean they've been delivering on War Games. I'll give them that, but it'll add an extra layer to the story.
I can't disagree with that, and I think that stables are a very powerful tool that WWE doesn't use anymore on the main roster. It's like they get so scared. They get so scared with the ratings that they're not willing to put story and just develop something.
with how they're transitioning away from the big man. I mean, they still have some big guys, yes, but overall, like you look at the main champions on every show, and nobody's really a big guy. So they need to get back to more stables for better storytelling.
There's nothing wrong with the big guy, though. You know, that whole Vince thing, I feel like we complain about it a lot, but there was a time not that long ago where we were all on Team Strowman, and we're like, it's time for Strowman to win. It's time for him to win, and then they just never did it, and it was like, what are you doing, Vince? This is what you like. You like the big guy. We're all enjoying the big guy. So why aren't you taking advantage? Because everybody's run is only going to last so long unless you're the best wrestler, one of the best wrestlers in the world. That's why eventually, and now for Kofi's sake, I will say this. I think I was down on Kofi weeks and weeks ago, and then he had one of his last major matches, he kind of won me back over. And I'm like, okay, I mean, I'm still okay. I'm willing to go with the Kofi stuff for a little bit longer. Now, that being said, I know that eventually I'm going to get back there with Kofi, where it's like, no, Kofi needs to lose at some point. Because he's not.
We do that with every champion at some point.
I don't know, man. I don't know how long. AJ Styles could have been champion for a long time, man. I mean, he was getting his ass beat and he was getting injured, so eventually he had to just, I think, drop it just to take a rest. But I was loving AJ Styles.
AJ can compete with anybody, and you feel like it's legitimate. Good. Kofi, the way he's been booked for all these years. Card where AJ's been the top of the card in every company he's been in. So it's almost like AJ's more believable to have these different people, to where Kofi, once he gets to a certain point, you're just like, I don't know if this is legitimate. Like you look back at the last couple Survivor Series. Brock Lesnar, I could see that. Him against Daniel Bryan was a little less believable for me. But him against Kofi, you just feel like Brock's going to murder him.
Yeah, I mean, well, they did that, what was it, Balor versus Brock at one point?
Yeah, and that one wasn't bad.
Well, it's all about there's that integral moment, right, where Brock is charging Finn and he sideswipes him, throws him into the table, and he really nails himself hard in the table. So they're really pushing, okay, he just overexerted and really hurt himself, and now this is the opening. Even though he lost that match, this is the opening for you to take advantage of Brock. And that's not bad. That's not a bad way of going about it. It's almost necessary when you have somebody that's that much better. Which reminds me that Lars Lucha House Party match, I didn't hate it. And the reason I didn't hate it was because it ended via disqualification, and it was Lucha House Party that got disqualified. They just jumped in there and they jumped him and they started beating the hell out of him. Now,
I didn't expect that.
They start to leave, and then he just comes out and just beats the hell out of them. So it's not a detestable storyline in my opinion. I don't know that any of the stories that they're running right now are like detestable, that I hate them. It's just there's so many ways, and I guess this is easy to say as a fan, but there's so many ways that we even talk about on this show about, you can do this or you can do that, and we're buying into our own storylines. We're like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that would, make it very interesting. Whether we were talking about like the stuff we wanted Sami Zayn to do, but then no more Sami Zayn, like, and they kill that stuff that seems to be working, and then they decide to turn away from it, and you're like, well, wait a second. Don't go so fast. Give that a little bit more time.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just a lot. It's a lot. There's been a lot of wrestling.
Yeah, but I think overall, at least, I'm happy that AEW put such a good pay-per-view. And again, the pay-per-view was kind of average to good-ish for the front half of it.
I think.
And then the back half of it was excellent. I think the best match of the night personally was the Lucha Brothers versus the Young Bucks, but I'm also a huge fan of Pentagon, so I was always going to enjoy that match.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Young Bucks, and I've seen a lot of their matches, and they're always so entertaining.
And it was good storytelling, right? Because the storytelling of the match was, hey, they haven't wrestled in a while, the Young Bucks, and at the beginning, it's like, yes, they look rusty, like they're playing that they're rusty, and it takes them about half the match to kind of get into their stride.
Yeah,
and
but then the super kick circle, and it starts all falling into place.
Oh, there was a time at one point I looked over at Chris and I go, so would you consider this to be like, an epic match or like a 5-star match? And he looks at me and he goes, I think I need like 5 more oh my god spots. And I go, okay, 5 more. And then we're watching it and I go, 1, 2, like they keep happening. And before we know it, it's like the match isn't even close to over with and they've already done all the spots. Like there were a couple when they did the brain buster to Phoenix on the top rope, I thought he was dead. I'm like, he's dead. He has ceased to be. Those
4 have worked together so much over the last couple of years that it's so like just it's a fluid motion for him now.
Yeah, and when these tag teams, like these good tag teams, I think one of the keys to being a good tag team is like the move to move fluidity, like going from like person to person to person. So like taking one of your opponents and then I do something and then you do something and then I do something and you do something, and like really in quick succession. Man, that really looks good. And yes, it's a little coordinated. Some might say it looks a little coordinated, and of course it is. It's wrestling. It's coordinated. But that being said, it looks good.
This looks very good.
It's kind of like, this is another thing I was thinking about talking about. Might as well just talk to you about it, is the typical move, like especially when people do like suicide dives and stuff like that.
Right.
One of the most interesting things to me is like I sometimes judge wrestlers by how well they sell broken moves like suicide dives and stuff like that. So, here's a guy and he's always going to do a suicide dive through like the second and third rope. But there's always that time where occasionally he doesn't get to do it because the guy comes at him and like throws a punch at him. It is so difficult for somebody to sell that because it always seems like kind of like people that have like horizontal moves off of the top rope and then they jump off the top rope vertically and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like that's not how your move works. But the guys that can actually sell that, and AJ Styles of course is great at it. I've seen AJ Styles do it plenty. That's a really difficult thing to pull off, and it's because I think it's scary. It's probably really scary as a wrestler to go horizontal when you know you're getting ready to eat a move.
I feel like I've seen Jeff do it years ago, but as he's been hurt and gotten older, he doesn't even do it as well anymore.
Well, yeah, because that's how people get fucked up, I guess.
That's true.
So there's
have all the drugs to make you feel better.
Yeah, there's a few guys that do it. You know who does it pretty well actually right now is Ricochet. I've seen Ricochet do it a few times since he's been on the main roster. Where
he does a lot.
He really is trying to sell the fact that he's going for his move and then he like eats a counter and you just like, oh my god, he just got devastated by that move.
Happens a good bit to him, unfortunately.
But it's good. Ali does it well too. Again, it's those group of wrestlers that I rant about sometimes that they're really good at selling moves, and that's the most important thing about them being wrestlers.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
They're not always the best offensive guys, although I can't say that about Ricochet and Ali because they're both excellent offensively. But Liv Morgan's that one. she's the wrestler who can eat a lot of great moves, but she does offensive moves, and you're like, needs some work.
Sasha Banks too, or Mercedes, or whatever she wants to be called right now. She can sell.
Is Sasha Banks coming back? Have you read anything about that?
I've heard things where she's in talks with things, and then all of a sudden people are saying she's in talks to go to AEW and be called Mercedes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, she still has a contract though, right? So she just has to sit that shit out.
Mm-hmm.
That ends up being how it is with everybody, and that's kind of what's happening with Luke Harper right now. He's just gonna sit his contract. It's like, well, are you not even gonna try? Are you not even gonna try to maintain your roster at all? I mean, Luke Harper is a good wrestler.
And that's the thing is he the only reason he asked for his release is he wasn't being used and he didn't want to be unhappy. He just wanted to be able to work. And they never have nothing for him, so let me go somewhere where they do.
I could think of a lot of stuff to do with Luke Harper.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I think we've thrown out ideas, and maybe not all of them are like, grandiose right off the bat, but you've got your 24/7 title. Having a guy like Luke Harper destroy whoever has that, and then just not being afraid of being attacked by people, because I don't think he would be afraid about being attacked by people. He's Luke Harper. He's a big guy. And we've yet to have somebody with the 24-hour title that's like that. You've had all of the, people that are wanting to run away and stuff like that. And how much can we use Drake Maverick as, comic relief? It's going to get
peeing on himself.
it's going to get a little bit old only cuz they use the same cast of clowns, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
sad.
For the moment, it's working well enough. So I can't complain about it too much. What did you think about Shayna Baszler versus Io Shirai?
It was better than I gave it credit for. I'm just not a Baszler fan. I don't know why. I just can't get behind her.
Oh, I hated her so much when she first came in because she was so bad. She was such a bad wrestler.
Still be champion. I know she's dropped it the once, but I feel like she should drop it again.
I think she should. I think she'll drop it to Io Shirai because I think Io Shirai is the best women's. No, it's not. I know she's the best women's wrestler in NXT right now. Period.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
I thought that I hated the match when it initially ended because the match wasn't that. It was okay, right? There was nothing spectacular about it. I try to judge women's and men's matches equally, but for whatever reason, WWE does kind of stifle them from doing crazy things every now and then. So to a certain degree, you can't as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so that match ends, and I'm thinking, all right, well, I don't know. That might have just been a glorified P-break match. But then when Io Shirai gets the kendo stick and then jumps in the ring and starts beating the hell out of her and then does like the moonsault and then gets the chair and does the moonsault, good stuff. It was
good storytelling.
Yeah, it made the end of that match great. And so, average plus great. It was a good match. It was still probably I don't know, was it the worst match of the night? I don't know. I think it's a toss-up, and I hate to say this. And this actually, I'll say this, but I'll give a little extra. I think that it was a toss-up between that match and the Velveteen match being like the worst match of the night. But believe me when I say worst match of the night does not mean it was a bad match. Tyler Breeze's Velveteen Dream, it wasn't the greatest match ever, but it was still entertaining.
Yeah, and that's the one I figured would be the match of the night. I was really looking forward to it. It wasn't everything I wanted, but it's still entertaining.
I think Matt Riddle, Roderick Strong was the dark horse match of the night. Although it wasn't the best either. I think it was middle of the road, but I think it did, Matt Riddle, I mean, again, they put him with a good worker. They put him with Roderick. So I almost want to see Riddle go against somebody who's not quite as good of a worker and see how that match goes, to see if they've taught him how to begin to really carry people, because I need to be sure that he is carrying the match at some point.
He's got me these last couple matches he's had. I'm on board.
I am too, 100%. I mean, like the one against Velveteen Dream, that was the one where we were all like, wow.
Yeah.
Like we weren't expecting him to be that good, and he really was. And that was I think the match of that takeover. The best match of that takeover. Now, I figured this would be a little bit of a split between our group. What was your favorite match of the takeover?
It was either the Riddle strong match or the tag match. That tag match was.
I love that tag match. I really did.
I expected Gargano Cole to be good.
It
And,
was.
I mean,
it was good.
that's why it didn't hit me as the match of the night.
Yeah, I will take all the arguments. If everybody else that we talk to about wrestling says you're crazy, James, the match of the night was Gargano Cole, I will take that. Like I'm not gonna like try to convince you that you're wrong because it was a good match. But in particular, the Street Profits, they deserved every bit of those flipping belts. Those guys, I've seen those guys, been watching those guys for a while, and they have gotten a lot better. And they were taking some crazy bumps. And so towards the end of the match, it was like, well, there's only two right answers for who gets these belts. Either Undisputed Era gets these belts or Street Profits gets these belts. And I think the Street Profits, they did a really, really good job. I mean, oh my God, some of the bumps in that match were brutal.
That's an understatement. Beat the hell out of each other.
To our liking, of course. The Forgotten Sons were kind of like, they probably could have done like a 3-way tag match and taken the Forgotten Sons out of it, and I don't know that it would have changed very much, even with the storyline of the leader coming out and starting to beat people up. Like, wasn't really doing it for me. But that being said, I thought, with those ladder matches, you've grown accustomed to, there's not much storytelling in ladder matches. It's just kind of like, here's a bunch of people and we're just going to do big spot after big spot after big spot after big spot, and they get crazier as they go, but they pretty much start out going 100 miles an hour. And this one was no different. I mean, it wasn't the best NXT ladder match I've ever seen. No, because that's still that North American original one. That match is epic. And just a reminder, even though I know you know this, and even though I know everybody else knows this, Lars Sullivan was in that match. They made him look really strong.
They did.
And he had molten heat. Oh my God, everybody hated him so bad. I remember he stepped on the ladder and everybody's booing their asses off at him. Gargano Cole. Man, those guys. Gargano can make anybody look powerful. He's got one of the best I just got knocked the fuck out faces. And, I don't know where I am, and oh my gosh, I'm dead faces. He takes moves and he's just like, he's not there. He's not there. His eye, he's learned to like gloss his own eyes over and make himself look like he's got a concussion.
Yeah, but then again, Cole's good. I mean, they know how to deliver.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that when you do a comparison, I was thinking of like, okay, so let's take your top 3 matches from NXT and your top 3 matches from Double or Nothing. Who's the winner?
Nah, I was more entertained by NXT.
See, I would disagree only from the standpoint of, because of the way I worded the question, right? The last 3 matches in Double or Nothing, solid, like really great. All 3 of them great. Where I'm then saying, okay, all 3 of the top 3 NXT matches are great, but I don't know, were they as good? Oh, I don't know. Man, that's tough. That's tough. I'm just so happy that the one thing at least that they can do is these NXT takeovers. That's going, really well, because if not for that, they'd be in some serious trouble. I was digging when When Triple H came down to the ring today for his match, he's wearing like a kind of like a leather jacket vest thing or whatever, and it said NXT on the side of it. I like that. He flies that flag, man.
Oh, he does. He flies it hard.
Well, it's his baby. It's like, how have we not given him full control over everything at this point? I mean, I want to know, are his team of writers for NXT different from the main show? I have to believe the answer is yes. And
yeah, I hate to say this, but if you look at the way the thing's laid out, producers and people behind the scenes in AEW and in NXT are the members of D-Generation X.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
That Edge are like, you know what? Let's try this. And if somebody says maybe not, they're just like,
just go for it anyway. I wonder about these writers, because they always talk about how many writers WWE has, and my question to that would be like, you know, why haven't you just fired a whole bunch of them? Like, how many writers do you need to, like, if you just say get a writer and that writer proves that they're good at writing a wrestling storyline, don't have them try to write the whole show with everybody else. It's like, focus on one story. You know, these are your wrestlers. Figure out good storylines for them.
yeah, if it was only that.
And I'm also getting to the point, and I think I might have pitched this the other week, but I'm kind of like this anti-wild card. I'm going to call it the anti-wild card rule, which is you have all these like high-end names on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown across the whole main roster. So many good wrestlers. Why not split everybody out and constantly give wrestlers days off on some of these tape days? Like maybe Roman Reigns is on, he can be on, Raw and SmackDown one week, but then the next week he's not going to be. And kind of cycle people in and out. Give them star power, but just enough star power. Don't feel like you have to flood every single show with all of your A-list people. Because you're never going to develop A-list people if all you do is push other A-list people. I mean, because there's guys like Robert Roode would be my example. Like when they first made the change for Robert Roode, I thought it was very good. It was a very good move, and we all enjoyed the mustache, and we all enjoy Bobby Roode, now Robert Roode, as a heel. So all that stuff was important, and you push him for like a night, and then you forget about him. Why is that? There has to be some amount of time that you can give the man. Maybe not in 1 week, but maybe you have him on the next week. Because all we end up doing is we start getting into the same bitch fest about, and like the biggest issues would be, again, the Iconics holding the women's tag team belts. What are they doing? If you're not going to have them fight multiple weeks in a row, then you're not doing it right. What you should be doing is saying, okay, then fine, you're not going to be on TV this week, but we're going to make sure we spotlight you next week because the women's tag team championship should be important. And then the same with the guys, really. I mean, when you're talking about Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins, it's like you never see them anymore. So my answer is not get the belts off of them. If you're not going to use them, get the belts off of them. It's like, no, if you're not going to use them, fuck you. Use them. You separate some time for them.
You have to have Roman Reigns on every show.
But you don't. See, so I'm confused at why they've convinced themselves that that's the case. Because all they've done is say, "Oh, our ratings have gotten low, so let's pump the rosters, both rosters full of the same people to keep ratings up." But I don't get it. Doesn't matter. All you're doing is you're canceling house shows, which is one of the main ways that wrestlers are making extra money, and nothing else. I mean, who are we caring about? I mean, nobody needs to care about the people that are at the show that's being taped. Screw them. Even if I'm there, screw me. Because I don't need to see every single main star on the roster if it's making the product and the roster as a whole weaker. Because when you have everybody below the top 8 people just dying and not doing anything, when you see them, any of these mainstream people, they're just going to be, the mainstream fans, they're going to be like, who is that? Or, oh, wow, like they may not even know who the person is at some point. You got to have these people get some face time.
Will they?
This is worse than repeating storylines. I could handle the repeating of storylines. I can't handle this. This is just bad. How do you fix a bad product? Oh, you make it worse. What kind of logic is that?
Repeatedly.
I just... Okay, so maybe, we talk about how do you fix it. So maybe that's my solution to fixing it, is doing the exact opposite thing that they're doing. Let wrestlers rest. Work on other storylines. Keep the SmackDown and Raw, they don't need to be like exclusive. Like, put them together again. Like, one big fucking roster. But people aren't always on every week. Sometimes you're giving like X amount of people a break. And whether you actually want to give them a break or you just have them somewhere else doing a house show, who cares? That's up to them. They can figure that out. If the wrestlers want to do that to make a little extra scratch, then good for them. Or they'll just enjoy the fact that maybe they get an extra day or two off. I think that's how you fix it, though. Do the exact opposite.
I believe it's going to be soon when they put the rosters together.
I mean, I would hope so.
They're going to put them together and do more cuts because they're going to get rid of people because, we don't ever use them.
They don't need to get rid of people, though. That's the argument that I'm making, is that... I
know, but that's not what they're going to get rid of people, because that's what they do every time they put the rosters back together, is they always fire like 30-something people.
I'm sure that there's like a 10% or 15% bottom of like the roster that they can get rid of. They could get rid of it even if they were split and they'd be fine. All I'm saying is the mid card in this company is massive and you don't see most of them. When's the last time you really saw Shinsuke Nakamura? When's the last time you really saw Rusev? They're not doing anything with them. So if they're not doing anything with them, why not, again, split them up? Almost like you're doing a brand split. Split them up, but you prioritize them by who you think has the most star power. Who they think who has the most star power. I don't care how they do it, because I think it'll work either way. And then again, this is week 1. This is week 2. This is our week A, week B. And then you just alternate those weeks. So, I'm not going to see Roman Reigns on TV. Luckily, I'm a wrestling fan, and Roman Reigns is not the only reason I watch wrestling. I want to meet the person that's the only reason. Like, I almost gave up on WWE, but thank God for Roman Reigns, because, he's the only reason I watch wrestling anymore. What? Nobody's fucking saying that. Nobody's saying that about any wrestling. Are you kidding me? Story is king. So all they need to do is focus on the story. Don't worry about what people think. Be willing to push the edge every now and then, no matter what your benefactors say. Because every single time a benefactor, puts their nose into the WWE's business about the storylines that they're doing because they think, that might be a little bit too offensive. What? I mean, look, listen, we've already talked about the Bray Wyatt stuff early on using the kids and how when the first time they did it, it was like, yeah, they're getting a little bit of backlash for it. And then they kept going further and they kept going further to the point where I was actually like, yeah, that one was like, to me, was really pushing the limits, but they still did it. And it was still working. Something can be slightly offensive and it can still work.
If they just do it.
Think of it as a joke. Think of it as joke writing, right? So a good joke might be offensive, but if you know it's a joke, you shouldn't take offense to it, right? So wrestling can be offensive, and for all those people that are taking offense to it, it's like, what the hell are you doing in your off time? You're sitting at home watching Game of Thrones? Like, are you not offended by Game of Thrones? Like, this is like way PG compared to that.
100%.
There's no
but
difference.
They let their kids watch this. They don't let their kids watch Game of Thrones.
Shit. I would challenge that to a certain extent for some people, though. It's easy. It's easy to throw stones. But at the end of the day, most programming that you have all over the place is a little bit edgy now. So wrestling really in WWE isn't that edgy like at all. Every now and then the New Day will say a joke that you're like, whoa, yeah, that was a little inappropriate. Or make an innuendo that you'd be like, well, that was inappropriate, and I know what they were talking about, but a kid wouldn't know what they were talking about. I don't see the big deal.
Yeah.
I think until they shake out those issues, and see, this is why I want Triple H to be in charge of everything, because I think Triple H understands that line of what can be appropriate and what's not appropriate and stuff like that. One of the old storylines that when I got back into watching wrestling with you guys was we were watching NXT all the time. I got to binge watch it most of the time nowadays, but when I was actually keeping up with it back in the day before Bobby Roode left, and he was the champion, and he had that great series of matches with Roderick Strong, and he actually, like, in a backstage promo, like, went up to, like, Roderick Strong's wife and was like, talking shit, basically. Like, that's good. That's perfectly fine writing for heel Bobby Roode. It fits the character. It works. It makes sense. It follows. So look at every character, look at where you have them, and just do it step by step by step by step. Let's do it right now. Name a wrestler that's way in the weeds right now that really needs help to get out. Somebody that's not a wild card wrestler. Rusev. Okay, so what should Rusev's gimmick be? Should it continue to be Rusev Day? Or is Rusev Day over?
Point, I think Rusev Day is over, and they killed it because they didn't come up with it.
Okay. So now...
saying that, they could always bring it back later, but I think he needs to have like not the stupid heel turn he has, but like a monster heel turn, like when he first came where he was just running through people.
Okay, so we think that Rusev needs to be heel. Okay, so what's the first step for Rusev being a heel?
At this point on SmackDown, attacking Kofi.
Sure, I think that might work. But I would say, for argument's sake, not to aim so high initially. So
attacking Finn.
No belt. Don't attack somebody with a belt. I think that's too high. So you have somebody on a roster that, because this is where it gets difficult. This is where we emphasize how bad the writing is, because other than people that have titles, who is a person that the crowd really feels for on SmackDown? That's a problem.
Rusev attack Mustafa Ali.
There you go. That's a good one. So simultaneously, you're working to build Ali's credibility of being a loving wrestler that everybody just loves to watch, and everybody like, oh, I heart Ali, you know what I mean? Because he's just a good face. And then you have Rusev destroy him, and then you have him destroy another face, and then another face. And these are matches, and they're not matches that they don't need to be matches in the same way that Lars matches are. Like, I don't want them to be like he's unstoppable, because I really am getting kind of tired of the unstoppable heel thing. But you got to just slowly do that slow build to get Rusev back to that top heel situation before you then have him go after a belt. Now, would there be a particular storyline? Like, how would you start a storyline for a Rusev heel turn? Like, have him be a face and, I don't know, be getting into it with management openly in a backstage promo about how, you know, he wants an opportunity. He feels like he's not being used. Be meta about it, right? Because that's happening in WWE. So that is good story. So you have Rusev complaining. Maybe, oh my God, go one step further. This is great. Have Rusev have a backstage promo where either in front of Triple H or Shane McMahon or Vince McMahon, whoever, he asks for his release in front of camera because he's not being used. And then basically the response he gets is, well, if you want a match around here, you have to earn it. Now, that's not accurate to the way that it actually works back there, but it's a way to then build the storyline of, okay, he needs to win matches. So maybe the first sets of matches, he's still a face, and you have him win a match, and then he finally gets a match where it's like, okay, if you beat that person, one of you two is going to get the title shot, like a title shot. Maybe it's an Intercontinental title shot. And he then loses that match. And then he goes ballistic and he turns heel. Might be a better way to transition him back into a heel. And then you've already got him there towards that mid-card, like already aiming at the belt, so it's not too fast of a push. And
I'll give you that.
You're continuing to use Lana as a valet and eye candy, of course. I think, and so now we take that concept and put that to every single wrestler on the roster. Every single one. Okay? Who are you actually going to use? Who are happy to be jobbers? Because you definitely need jobbers. You know, Heath is always going to be a jobber, it seems like. I got kids. Like, so you technically need wrestlers like that, because you need wrestlers for, you know, you need like maybe a bottom quarter of the wrestlers to help push people up the ranks or whatever.
Yeah.
So now you just apply that to everybody. Just apply that to everybody. You know? Okay.
I feel like we want that too much for that to actually happen.
Want what too much, though? Want them to write story? Want them to do their job?
Yeah.
I want them to do their job too much.
Their job for more than just 6 people.
I feel like I would blow my brains out if I was a writer sitting at a table with 20 other writers, and all we were worried about was, well, the number one storyline works, you know, that's what we're worried about, and everything else is kind of disposable. What?
That's what it feels like.
The bottom quarter's disposable. There's got to be disposable storyline. Again, the bottom quarter is disposable. But those wrestlers also have to understand, when you have a competitive wrestling promotions, you're going to start losing people, and so eventually it'll shake out that AEW in this case is going to have a good set of people at the top, just like WWE has a good set of people at the top, and then they have a very strong mid card to a certain point, and then it starts to fall off on both shows. Those people that are towards the bottom, those are the people that maybe they're not the greatest wrestler in the world. Maybe they love to wrestle and they're just happy that they've got a job and that they get to, work with cool people and that it's what they love to do. And maybe they even understand, maybe every now and then I'll get a push up to the mid-card occasionally, but for the most part, I'm just a jobber. Again, Heath Slater. Is Heath Slater disappointed? Does he want to leave?
No.
Exactly. You're getting paid to be a jobber isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, we always focus on these top tier people because it's always the top tier people that are leaving. So, again, I'm not this idealistic person who thinks, oh, we can save the whole roster. Again, there's like I said, the bottom 10 to 15% that they can probably cut right now. And then there's the bottom 25% of what's left over that you guys are pretty much jobbers. And then there's everybody else. But that's still more than what they're focusing on.
100%.
So, I don't know. That shit gets me so turned up, man. Even just like, watching Raw and SmackDown and just this thing where they just forget storylines that they do. I mean, you remember back in the day when Sasha Banks and Bayley were having strife, and then Bayley couldn't understand why Sasha Banks was, so mad with her, and then she's like, "It's because I actually like you more than just a friend." And it was like one episode of wrestling, and then you never heard about that ever again. I was like, what the hell just happened?
Mm-hmm.
That's like random stuff, and that's almost like that is edging on the absurd, but sometimes the absurd sells. So sometimes it's not such a crazy idea. So I don't know. Let's throw it back to Drake Maverick. You said at least he isn't pissing his pants anymore. Yeah. I didn't hate that. I didn't think they did it well though. The idea of him peeing in his pants, like, it's a little bit absurd, but I'm not going to sit here and claim to be, like, I don't know. It's like you can't say that you're one of those people that wants to push wrestling, to be written as if it were a sporting event, and then be annoyed when it's not funny enough for you or doesn't make you angry enough and stuff like that. Like, you need silly shit in the shows.
You do, but
you need things that are going to piss you off. That's why, when we were picking WrestleMania and all the faces won, but I was swearing on the podcast, I'm like, there's no way all the faces can win. That's not good writing. And you know what? I was right. Because then we had to deal with this long run, and I sad to say that it was Becky Lynch that took the brunt of that, but we had to deal with this Becky Lynch character that had 2 belts that was just ruining the women's division in it to a certain degree. That had to be on every show every single time, and it was doing nothing to help the women's division.
It's true.
You just said true. It's true. You're agreeing with me that Becky Lynch was ruining the women's division when she had 2 belts.
But the way they ended up doing it, it's true. Oh, whenever they made it the 2-belt situation, working toward.
Now, would it have been better if they just would have unified it? Only if they would have unified the rosters, right? So yes. They give her 2 belts, and then they immediately unify the women's division, and really both rosters, they unify them. I mean, you could still have one roster and still have a...
They did, but they didn't.
Yeah, you could still have 2 rosters and have a World Heavyweight Championship belt and a Universal title. You don't have to get rid of either of those titles when they bring them together.
Yeah, they did it for years, and it worked fine.
Although they should get rid of that ugly-ass Universal title because it is the bane of my existence. That is the ugliest title ever, and it's just... they just lucked out. They lucked out.
The ugliest title?
Well, I was going to say, they lucked out because of the 24/7 title. It's like, hey, this was the ugliest title we've ever made. Do you think we can outdo it? Yeah, I've got this design for a 24/7 title. And don't you dare talk about that Daniel Bryan title. That thing was beautiful.
It was hideous.
It was fucking wonderful. And I know if Chris were here right now, he would 100% agree with me. In fact, I'm like waiting for them to throw away the tag titles and have two versions of the tag titles like that. I want that so bad. The Planet's champions. They're the Planet's champions. It stinks that
and I hate it.
It stinks that he, he's been beaten up a little bit because that was a really good storyline.
But at the same time, could you keep having him versus Kofi?
Oh, I'm not talking about having him versus Kofi though necessarily. I'm just like, one of the things they were selling those shirts, right? You remember, like Daniel Bryan, the Planet's champion, and so we were like, is that a giveaway that he's gonna win? But then Kofi actually won. But then they still had those shirts, so we had convinced ourselves that maybe it would be a Taz type thing where Daniel Bryan like keeps his old belt and he just carries around and talks about how he's champion all the time. He's the Planet's champion. That was
a WWE champion, but I am the Planet's champion.
Yes, that would be such a good storyline because eventually somebody from the back's going to be like, "Hey, I'll fight you for the Planet's champion. I want to be the Planet's champion." Like, it makes things a little silly and a little interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I think that's part of Daniel Bryan's new gimmick is he doesn't want to be silly. He's trying to be...
No, but that's it. That's it, right? He's being straight. It's silly for me. It's silly for you. It's not silly for him. He's a character.
It's true.
I don't know. Oh, I want to hear a couple storylines that you want to fix right now. Give me something. What do you want to fix? The boss, Stephen Hill. What do you want to fix right now?
Oh, God. The boss. Fix? It's on both shows, the tag division. Like, there's nothing going around the tag titles.
It used to be the best, too. It used to be the best thing.
It's like, why did they take the titles off of the Revival? They take the champs off TV, but keep the Revival in a storyline with the Usos.
Yeah. There's too much, yeah. I mean, but I think between that and the where are they questions. Where are the tag champs? Why aren't they fighting? They broke up Ricochet and Aleister Black. Why? Why'd you do that? If Ricochet wasn't going for gold, then why did you break those two up?
And then not use Black at all.
Yeah, where's he been? Did they do any promos for him last week?
Yeah, they did some kind of. He's like, I'm gonna be laying in wait for a challenger, or something or another. Yeah.
I mean, I think I've mentioned this before. Like, it's time for Undertaker to go away, and it's time for Aleister Black to take the reins. He's never gonna be Undertaker, but take the reins of like the supernatural type character.
Even with Yowie Wowie going on.
Yowie Wowie's more demonic. I don't know. You can do it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's a good point. You're making me question myself now. I don't know. You could be you'd be typical WWE and just put them on separate shows and just do the same thing.
Have them be illegitimate brothers.
I still, to this day, really just wanted to have, if you're going to keep it two shows and separate them, have two stables on both shows that take over the show, like, totally. And then have them battle out at Survivor Series. Like, I think what I was thinking at the time was, like, you had, like, the family. You bring back the family, and the family, like, converts most people of whatever show they're on to the family, and the family becomes huge. And then you have some faction on the other side, Like
the Wolfpack and the NWO.
Yeah. Sure.
It worked.
It does. It's good. All right, next. What's next, Steven? What else do you want to fix?
The mid-card picture still.
What part of the mid-card picture, though?
make it relevant.
I think
You get some Finn matches, and Joe and Ray had decent little run, but when's the last time they've actually felt like a relevant situation for the mid-card titles?
the last
Reigns
time
is still the person they're advertising as the big ticket seller, not where it could be the IC title or the US title.
I would say the last time I felt like the IC title was really, really relevant, like really, really relevant, was when The Miz had it last. That was a long time ago.
Oh yeah, the Miz and Ziggler's feud was amazing, and then he went right into his feud with Seth and with Roman and with Dean. Like he delivers with that belt.
Yeah. He's the perfect mid-card guy.
Have with the belt as the Miz.
I think Samoa Joe's the right person to have with the US title. I think Finn's
He
the
is.
wrong person to have the IC title on, only because I think that Finn should be getting pushed a little bit higher up. Like, save, you still need people to cycle through with the top levels and have people have tough matches at the top end. Like, when you talk about like legitimate sports, right, or legitimate fighting, then shouldn't two of the best fighters fight to face the best fighter, right?
Yeah.
So you should have your own pool of, I'm not going to call them jobbers because they could move at any time, but I will. Your own little pool of like top end jobbers. So it can't be guys that are jobbers at the bottom. They have to be like really good wrestlers at the top. That just, it's not their storyline time.
They did good with Jinder Mahal. People hated it at the time, but it was good. He got over. It worked.
Well, over. Yeah, I guess over doesn't necessarily mean people are
To me,
cheering
he was
you.
over.
People can be booing you. Like, whether they boo you or they cheer you, it's good either way.
Yeah.
Where's Jinder Mahal? I mean, I saw him today in that 15-man Battle Royal, but they haven't been using him at all.
He's been in the 24/7 championship picture.
Yeah, it's
Won a belt
again
on a tarmac, won a belt on a horse.
again to then use that belt for like everybody. It's like I want to see people like mad cycling through that, right? Okay, you're done with your run with this storyline. We bump you down. We'll occasionally see you in the 24/7 storyline. We'll occasionally see you in your own match because we have to make sure that we're continuing to build your story to build you back up again, because it's just rises and falls.
Yeah, and it's like at this point, they former world champion, but you have him having spots to R-Truth.
Yeah, but I guess one of my arguments too would be that you do have former champions that find their sweet spots, right? So as much as I'm not a huge fan of Randy Orton, I always did like the sweet spot of him always kind of lying in wait, and then suddenly somebody who's trying to push up through the ranks, maybe even on the lower end, is like, I really need a challenge, and then Randy Orton comes out, and you're not expecting it, and you're like, oh, God. Yeah, now you have to face Randy Orton. Good luck.
Yeah.
So I don't think just because you're a former champion means that you have to be too far up. I think Jinder Mahal's sweet spot's the mid-card. I really do.
But that's the thing, is they're not even using him as mid-card.
Oh, yeah, he's low-card. He's low-card.
And it just, I don't know, I feel like that it hurts his credibility, and it hurts the credibility of the world title in itself.
Yeah, I feel like you have like maybe, a handful. It's almost like you have less in the mid-card rotation than you have in the top-card rotation. And then you just have a shit ton of people in the low-card rotation, which makes no sense. I don't know. So Joe, I mean, I think Joe's the right one for the U.S. title. I think, I don't know, do you have him do a U.S. Open Championship call-out or whatever? That's not really his style.
I don't. It's not. But I think decent feuds for him would be good. Like, I think him and Cesaro could have a good feud. Him and Mustafa could have a decent feud.
Well,
to make it feel like it's worth something.
Well, he got eliminated today out of the Battle Royal by Ricochet and Mustafa Ali.
Together, yeah.
So there's two people right there that you could have either of them. Obviously, that the easy one I think would be Ali because Ali's on SmackDown, right? So Ali, Joe. I think that would be a really good
The
feud.
U.S. title's on Raw.
Oh, is it on Raw?
Yeah.
So Ricochet then. Is Ricochet on Raw? God, I'm getting so confused. This wild card thing's got me all jumbled up.
Yes, and that could be a way to pull Ali into the wild card and let Roman have a
Oh,
reign.
Balderdash the wild card. That wasn't supposed to be your response. Oh, pull so-and-so into the wild. No, fuck the wild card. Either
To
keep them
a
separate or
triangle
put them
feud.
together.
Ali into a feud with Joe. Like have Joe attack Ricochet, beating him down, then Mustafa's just backstage. But if he runs out the help, they're gonna say, "Oh, it's the wild card rule," because Michael Cole likes to say wild card rule.
Michael Cole likes to push anything that Vince wants him to push.
He's a company man. You got to give him credit. He
I-
knows who writes checks.
I mean, I get that, but that at some point you got to know when your company isn't operating correctly.
Yeah, but you can have Mustafa come out there and help Ricochet, and then that sets up for a pay-per-view down the road for a triple threat match. Turn on each other a little bit because they're each trying to win.
Yeah. I think that would be a really good match with lots of good spots, especially with Joe, because Joe's a bigger guy, but he's always been a bigger guy that can do some fun spots.
Especially make it like a cage match or a ladder match. Like put some kind of stipulation into it and let the two of them go crazy with their spots and let Joe throw them around to set up spots. It'd be a wonderful match if they do it right.
I wonder, is Dolph Ziggler actually back? I mean, he wrestled today against Kofi, and then he's already got a rematch with Kofi for Stomping Ground.
Cage match.
Yeah, steel cage match. I wonder though if after he loses that, because I expect him to lose that match, is that just because he's been like I think a writer and a producer or whatever backstage that he's just done after that and he's like right backstage again?
I think he's transitioning into a different role. I think he hasn't got what he's wanted out of his career. He's always been that upper mid card kind of person. And if they never really, if he was coming into his own now, like if it was 10 years ago, Dolph now, if it is, I think he'd be a lot better off. Good career. He's been the top of the mountain like 2-3 times.
A couple times, yeah.
But I could see him doing good as being a writer and giving some of these younger people like Ricochet, Mustafa, and other guys who could still go no matter who they're in there against.
Yeah. Well, I think on your other mid-card title side, I think that it's important that Finn Balor, again, I think I already said it, loses. He needs to lose that title. It needs to be on somebody else.
And I think it's a great first belt for Andrade. I think it'd be perfect for him. I think he could be a ruthless IC champion and bring some credibility back to it.
Yeah, and just like make that title, like just have so many amazing matches for that title. Like bring up use some of these mid-card guys that are going to have an incredible match against him. Ali wouldn't be a bad person against Andrade.
Wouldn't they would have a great match?
They would have an amazing match. If you gave them a pay-per-view match and were like, we're going to give you 30 minutes, it's going to be a really good match.
And that's the thing is I think like The Miz, he's such a great heel IC champ, but he's the sleazy heel.
Yeah, which is fine.
I think you could make him be the ruthless kind of heel.
Yeah, Andrade's definitely ruthless. He doesn't need to cheat because he's just that good type of a heel.
And you were talking about factions. Let there be a Latino world order like WCW did for a little bit. Let them have, like, I hate to say the Lucha House Party, but people like that, and get some other like Latinos in there faction to where he's running the roost as IC champ to give it credibility to show that, yeah, to get this IC belt. Because it used to be a big deal. It used to be if you were an IC champ, you're in the runnings. Eventually, you'll be a world champ. And now,
Yeah.
Stone Cold was IC champ. The Rock was IC champ. Triple H was IC champ. Randy Orton was IC champ.
Yeah, it's one of those gotta go through your comeuppance.
Yeah.
I think that those are all great ideas, actually. But much like any good ideas that we have, they're not going to do them. I've already made my peace with that, and all I can do is be that optimistic, stupid guy talking on the podcast, saying, "Well, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Damn it!"
If only.
If only. Well, we've talked for about an hour and a half now, so I'm going to throw it to you real quick, and we maybe have already talked about it, but I want to hear, as usual, what is the thing that you want to see this upcoming week?
Legitimate development. I want to see the tag titles back, and I just need to a story. Just give me something Sammy involved in with whatever it is, because I just love his character.
Yeah. Do you want him to be back with KO at all?
I think KO's kind of in some hot water for to go. Like, they didn't want Sammy. They didn't want Aleister Black to come for like religious and kind of tattoo purposes. KO just didn't want to go. Be in the top. And I think that's going to pull him back a little bit.
What
a way to try to fix the tag division, but have Sammy and KO go for the tag belts.
Was KO supposed to fight Kofi?
KO was still supposed to be in a feud with Kofi, but he refused to go to Saudi Arabia. So Dolph Ziggler was a fill-in. That's why he kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. I was happy to see Dolph Ziggler, though.
The feud with KO wasn't supposed to be over yet.
I don't know. I don't know, man.
You could have the world's tag team champions, and then KO and Sammy win it, and they're the Canadian tag team champions, and they put their own twist on the tag titles with like a maple leaf in the middle of it or something.
Yeah, that could be cool for sure. I like it. I like that idea. Let's hope they do that.
Well, what do you want to see happen?
What do I want to see happen? I've got to talk. I'm always trying to talk like this week. What do I want to see happen? I think from everything that I saw, and we already talked about it, I think let's develop something out of Ali, Ricochet, and Joe, or any pairing of those. I think would be good. I think that both of those are the right person to have go against Samoa Joe. I don't know who would be, unless there's somebody I'm not thinking of that would just be a better target for Samoa Joe. But the thing is is the Rey Mysterio thing really done? Are they really done with that?
If he's legitimately hurt, then it's done.
Well, no, I mean, I know done from that standpoint, but what of the Sun standpoint?
I think the feud was supposed to go on for another few months, and they were going to work with him. I just don't think he's ready.
Yeah. Well, either way, Samoa Joe is gold. Samoa Joe is gold. So let's work towards that. I'm stealing. You know what? I'm stealing your shit, bro. I'm like, let's fix those mid cards. I'm all for it, brother. I'm all for it. Like, let's see those two storylines start to work themselves out. Get Samoa Joe a really good opponent, and let's work to get that belt off of Finn, particularly to Andrade. And no rubber matches or any of that crap. Just get it off of him. And
no more instant rematches kind of fizzled away, didn't it?
Oh, of course it did. But it's fine. Like, there's a time and a place, right? Like, nobody dislikes having rubber matches. Like, it's okay to have, a couple matches in a row if they're all going to be good. The problem is if you do it more than 3 times, right? If it's like, oh, they've fought each other like 15 times now. It's like, what? Why? This makes no sense.
Like the AJ versus Nakamura.
Yeah, just kept going. It's like the Energizer Bunny, man. Energizer Bunny
And
matches.
not only did it just keep going, but it kept going with no different outcome.
Yeah, it's always just like, well, somebody's going to hit somebody in the groin, and then, we'll go into the next match.
Have AJ ultimately lose it because he gets hit in the groin.
Yeah, that was sad. That was like that was a little more than a year ago. I think that was going on because I think I remember, or no, maybe it was 2 years. Gosh, I don't know. I can't remember. I can't remember when we went to Carolina Rebellion. I think it was last year. Last year we went to Carolina Rebellion, and one of I think the last night that we were at Carolina Rebellion, there was a pay-per-view on, and we were actually driving down the road. So it was me, Captain Chuckles, Creamy Kramer, and Chris, and we're like listening to the Shinsuke Nakamura match, and it had some bullshit ending like that. And it was like, this is so stupid. Like, what are they doing?
Every one of them had a bullshit ending like that.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
What are you gonna do? Just hope for the best. Maybe tomorrow. I don't know. All right, well, that's our time. Steven, thanks for coming on and talking to me. I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah. For all you people out there listening, if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, please. If you liked it, give us a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. If you want to comment anything at all, please do so. I will probably talk back to you. Especially if you say something negative. But thanks for listening to us this week, and we should be back next week, no problem. We just missed 1 week. That should be it, and we should be good from now on. And catch you then. Later.